a chance to break this game open.
And Nimmo cracks one deep right center field. Looking up Hayward. It's out of here. Brandon Nimmo's first major league home run. It's a 3-run shot. Nimmo hits one to Wyoming, and it's 7-1 New York.
And Nimmo has got a nice compact swing working.
He's got a little Hunter Pence in him, doesn't he?
He does. Good call.
Fans want a curtain call. And he obliges.
Awesome. I still get chills just watching that, man. I'm not kidding you. I think all of Wyoming jumped, well, I would say this high, but I can't jump that high. But, I mean, it was unbelievable. And I know your parents did. Yeah. And your mom can't jump that high, but I know she did. Oh, man, what an exciting time. Well, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Galen.
Yeah, golly, this is, okay, so the closest I ever got to the big leagues was in my backyard with a wiffle ball bat in my mind, and I hit one, What's it like to step up? I mean, none of us can imagine that.
It's very, very surreal, even to look back on now.
Yeah.
I had an amazing time there, and I just remember thinking, I'm just as surprised as everybody else that I hit that home run.
Yeah.
And
how far was that? 440 something?
442 feet. Yeah. It happened to be the longest one at Citi Field at that time of the season.
Oh my gosh,
so,
that's a long.
A few days later, Cespedes couldn't handle that.
Right, so he crushed one.
But
oh my gosh.
But yeah, no, it was a very surreal feeling. I remember getting halfway in between first and second base, and it finally hit me. Like I saw it go over. I remember hitting the ball, and I was like, well, I never hit a big league home run before, so I don't know. And I was like, I'm going to sprint as hard as I can.
I could tell. I think you probably broke the record on home run sprint.
Well, they said that Rizzo, the day before, he hit a inside the park home run and ran the bases in 17.8 seconds, and I ran mine in 17.1. and mine went out of the park, so I didn't even have to. So.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
But I remember hitting it, and I got there, and I was in between first and second, and I said, in my head, I went, I just hit a big league home run.
Oh,
this is unbelievable. I can't believe it actually happened. People only dream about that. That's exciting. Well, I wanted you to we're going to talk about some highs. You actually ended your AAA year at the second high in the batting title in AAA, which is by one hit. Yep.
That was amazing. So they give you a shot at coming up to the bigs, and you had a really good run there. And actually helped the Mets kind of turn the corner, and we're a big part of that. And your face was all over New York. It's unbelievable. Well, so those are the high points. But there is a low point I want you to talk about in a second. Yeah. The thing that I didn't know until I started following you is I knew there was single A, double A, triple A. Mm-hmm. I had no idea how many levels there are in each of those. Yeah. I mean, rookie leagues and all these things. How you spent so much time in these in Dominican Republic, actually, and then a couple of double A divisions, and then finally single A divisions, and finally double A, and then finally triple A.
Yep.
What I want you to do, because take us back to that 2012. You signed in 2011. Mm-hmm. 2012 is your first year out, and you were in New York, right?
Well, I started off the year in spring training. It was supposed to maybe go to Savannah after that, which was low A, and didn't play well enough. Was overpowered. And so then in April, when everybody else left for their teams, I stayed in extended spring training. Okay. And then that's part of my life that I really try and forget, because you play at noon every single day in front of one or two people, maybe. I've had many post-6 games that were much more exciting than that.
No kidding.
And
in the Florida Heat.
Yeah, in the Florida Heat.
Oh, my goodness.
And, it just wasn't it was very hard to get up for those games. Sure. But the people are very talented that you're playing against, so you have to try. And I just remember I really struggled through that too. Okay. And then I went to New York. Then I went to Brooklyn, New York in June, and really struggled there. Was hitting 161 at the end of July. So that was 2 months into the season. And 161 is not very good in baseball. So you're trying to get somewhere around that 300 mark. So I was very well below that. And I just remember in about May of that year, I had grown up in a Christian family, and thought that I had, a good personal relationship with Christ. But in about May of that year, I was pretty much said, you know what, God, you and I aren't seeing eye to eye. So if you're not going to get it done, then I'm going to go ahead and get it done by myself.
Okay.
And so I don't know what you're thinking, but we're not on the same page. So I'm going to go ahead and get it done.
Take charge of this career and going to get it. Okay.
It wasn't like I said, "Oh God, you're not real." It was just like, I'm frustrated with you, and this isn't how it's supposed to work out.
Well, and New York is not the most friendly place in the world to play when you're not going well.
No, yeah, people. It's a different culture in New York. If any of you have ever been there, you know that. But people in Brooklyn especially are very straightforward, and if you're not doing well, they let you know. Yeah. And so they were, people were telling me, why do we pay you so much money? Why do we draft you? Yeah. You're the biggest bust we've ever had. And so, and I was 19 years old. I was like, wow, I've only been in half a year. So, sure. But anyways, that starts to kind of, get into you. And, sure. And so I was like, okay, God, if you're not going to do it, then I'm going to figure out how to do it. So I tried that way. I tried my way for a few months, probably 4 months or so. And then we got to the end of July. And I just remember I would call my parents at the end of every day if they were awake, because we finished late. And I just said, I just remember being tired. I was just tired of fighting. I was worn down. I was mentally just tired. I mean, I had come to the end of myself. Okay. And I remember we were in Mahoney Valley, Ohio, and was hitting 161. And just playing terrible, wondering if I made the right decision. Pretty sure I didn't make the right decision. And finally came to a point in my life where I got to the point where making it to the big leagues didn't define me anymore. Okay. I was talking to Mom and Dad, and they told me they were always speaking the truth into my life. And they said, it's okay. And I basically got to the point where I said to them, if God wants me to make it, then I'm going to make it, and if He doesn't, then I'm not, and that's okay. And that's the change on the inside that had happened, because I had never been okay with that. Right. I had always thought that, okay, God's will and my will aligned, but never in my heart had I really accepted that. I was like, okay, it's only okay if I make it to the big leagues, or if things in my life are going the way that I think they should. Sure, right. And on that day, inside, my heart changed, and I finally said, it's going to be okay either way. God's going to put me where He wants me, right. And it's not looking like it's the big leagues. It's not looking like it's going to be even professional baseball much longer. When we were talking and you told this story, I thought, man, this light bulb went on in my head, because I knew this Man Up series was coming, and I knew I wanted to talk about this surrender, and that surrender is real. And the good news is you learned this at 19. I learned it at age 43. I'm glad, fortunately for you. But it's a place in your soul where you come to the end, and you're kind of white knuckling it. I've got to make this happen, and I'm going to, you kind of jaws clenched. And then there comes a place where it's like, and I did the same thing in a different setting, but people can relate to this, whether it's at home or at work or whatever you may be. It's like you finally just, well, not everybody's done this, but finally say, God, I can't. Right. This is in your hands. And whatever, if it's here or whatever, I'm giving it to you, because it's killing me. Yep. Yeah. So not everybody has this turnaround this quick, but baseball is kind of an intense life. Yeah. So what's the next day look like? Well, so I had come to that point in my heart that, I was okay with whatever was going to happen next. And you're right. I don't think it normally happens this quick. Right. But literally the next day, I went 4 for 5 and almost hit the cycle. And in baseball, a cycle is you hit a single, a double, a triple, and a home run all in one game. And I just didn't hit the triple, but my last at bat, I hit a line drive over the center fielder's head, and he dove backwards and caught it just barely, and that probably would have been the triple. Yeah. And a cycle is really hard to come by in baseball. So, and then the rest of the year until the first week of September, I ended up hitting somewhere around 320 the rest of the year. Got my average all the way back up to 282 just before the end of the year, and it really just was two totally different players. Honestly, you could see from my perspective and from everybody else's perspective, you could see just that downward until that day, and then my career just kind of went right back up.
And if you could just bottle that stuff, whatever that is, what it is, it's the word surrender. And I'm going to talk about that today, but it's so crucial, and it's crucial in life. It's crucial, obviously, in sports, but it's in everything we do. Now, it also, on one level, it can look like, okay, so you pray to God, and it's almost like a lucky rabbit's foot, and then now everything goes well.
Right.
You had a guy that poured into you. I thought this was a cool story. Tell us about that.
So I had a guy in the next, not the next spring training, in 2015 spring training, I got to go to big league camp, and Daniel Murphy, which is a name that some people recognize, but he's second baseman for the Washington Nationals now, and just took second place in the NL National League batting title. Hit about 348 in the big leagues this year, and very, very strong Christian man. And anyways, he had a spring training Bible study, and he invited me to it. And at the end of the Bible study, he said, we were going through James, which is very black and white. And hit you hard. And and he said, at the beginning of every year, I have to write my perspective. He said, I can get very caught up in wanting to hit 300 every year and make more money and all this things that the world can offer us. But where I really find my strength and my purpose is through God. And so I have to be okay with the fact that I might not get one hit this year, and I might hit 0, and I might have the world telling me how bad I am. And through that, and how I handle those people telling me that, and how I handle that situation, that's how I'm going to glorify God.
Right.
And so not only in success, but in failure, we have to keep the same heart. Right. And so he really imprinted that on me, that it's a scary prayer to pray.
It is.
To be like, God, it's in your hands. It's your will. And if I don't get one hit and I get thrown out of baseball this year, which is my livelihood right now, and for us, we feel very, very blessed to be there, but that's a scary prayer to pray, to be like, it's okay if it's gone. Right. It's okay, because your will is what is most important, and I'm only here to please you and to further your kingdom. Yeah. So I have to set what I think is good for me to the side and trust that you know what's best for me. Yeah,
that's amazing. And we talked about this. There's guys that have done this in baseball. Dave Dravecki would be one. He broke his arm, lost his arm, and way through a horrendous loss in his life, and he was a big league pitcher, and man, glorified God in a big way. And so not everybody can embrace that message. Yeah. But very few, even fewer, can actually do that message. And I honestly think, that's honestly the test in our lives is true surrender, and then it's probably going to be tested. Yeah. And to see if we truly can be glorify God even in the bad times. Real quick, okay, so what's next for you? When do you report to camp? What's this look like for you?
Well, I report to camp in February 16th. Okay. And then
Port St.
Lucie, Florida. Yep. And then I'll start playing some games and try to make the team. But I actually just found out a few days ago that Team Italy would like me to play for them in the World Baseball Classic.
That's awesome.
So I might get to do that. And it's looking like I'm going to do that March 9th through the 13th.
Okay. Awesome.
So that'll be during spring training, and that's a really cool experience.
Where will that be?
That would be in Mexico. Guadalajara.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Guadalajara.
We would play Team Mexico.
It might be warm down there.
That night. Yeah,
it might be. Yeah, it could be a little humid.
I've never been, so I don't know.
No, it's a beautiful place. Well, that's awesome. Okay, you got a shot here at I don't know, young people, junior high, high school. What do you say to young people that are trying to follow God in a you're following God in a very difficult place. I'm not kidding you. Trying to glorify God in the Big Apple. They're just looking for anything, any crack in your character. Right. And when I saw you were up between majors and then down to the AAA and then up to majors, and I know they were freaked out that you could handle this roller coaster ride the way you did. And I know it's because the Lord's in your heart and you had this perspective. Right. But not everybody gets there, and but there's young people that are having to slug it out in high school. It's not easy either.
Right. And I would say high school is probably one of the toughest arenas to stand for Christ, because after high school you start to find your own identity and place your worth in things rather than other people's thinking. And so in high school, I know it was very important for me, but for anyone in general, any young kid out there, I would just say it's a very small and narrow path that leads to Christ and that leads to life. It's a very wide and easy path that leads to death and destruction. So sometimes the path that everybody else is going on is not the one that you should choose. And that is usually the easiest path. So I would say get used to doing hard things, because it's going to serve you better in the end. And really, the only person that you should be trying to impress in this life is Christ. So keep your perspectives right. It only matters what Christ thinks about you. It only matters what you're doing for Christ. And then put everybody else's opinions to the side and get ready to do hard things, because when you ask God to come into your life, just like Galen said, he's going to test you. Yeah. And that's the scariest thing about prayer, is not that God might hear you, it's that he's going to hear you, and he's going to test you. Yeah. And if you ask for patience, he's going to test you with patience. And if you ask for perseverance, he's going to test you with perseverance. It doesn't matter, but that's the scariest part. And if I test him with trusting his will, or I asked him, I want to do your will, he's going to test me with trusting his will. Sure. So get ready to do hard things, but it's going to pay off in the end.
Awesome. God bless you, man. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for
having me. Would you give it, man? Appreciate you. That's a good word. Good word. All right.